Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. I've had nothing really to eat today. I have not had coffee. I did have a protein shake. Why did I have a protein shake? Because for once in my miserable existence, I decided to lift weights today. I decided to do a little bit of yoga today. Is it going to help? I don't know. Am I going to feel substantially better about myself than I do on any other day? Probably not. I think actually the best way for me to put into words how I'm feeling today, it really comes back to my 2-year-old this morning. And so if you'll allow me, I'm really quickly, I want you guys to experience what it's like to be a parent in this house, because I got my 2-year-old up this morning, and it's a Monday, and the time change messes with kids for whatever reason. I still don't totally know why. And you would think that with the extra hour of sleep, they're going to be all happy. They're going to be happy-go-lucky. Everybody's going to be ready to get up and like run off to school and all that wonderful stuff. So my 2-year-old this morning, I go to get him up. Now, he was up at 5 a.m. singing to himself. He was up at 6 a.m. singing to himself. And then when I finally go in to wake his little keister up for, going off to daycare, he doesn't greet me with the same kind of happy-go-luckiness that I'm used to because he's tired. And so I said to myself, why don't we sit the kid down and let's interview the 2-year-old and see how he's feeling today? Of course, I didn't actually interview him, but I did think to myself, how can I get out of him exactly how he's feeling right now? And so I'm going to play for you what my 2-year-old had to say about Monday, because this was earlier today. My 2-year-old, I said to him, "Happy Monday." Here's what followed. Happy Monday.
No.
That was it. We get a nice big sigh and a no. Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
No.
And then I decided that's how I feel this morning. Because if you said to me, if we were all in the same room right now, and you said to me, Russ, the Eagles made yet another trade. They've made multiple trades over the bye week. Are you excited? No. Russ, do you think that this is necessarily a great indication that Howie's season is coming to fruition? And do you feel great about the additions made by Howie Roseman today? No. Do I ultimately think that they're going to be helpful to this defense? I do. I think that there's like a good enough chance that who Howie Roseman has brought in, including Jair Alexander, who this team was obviously very interested in before when he was departing the Packers, I think that can end up being a good pickup. Michael Carter could be a good depth player. The trade today certainly gets you thinking a little bit more about what could be, and there's obviously a history with Vic Fangio, and so maybe you get yourself really excited this morning about Jalen Phillips, and you say, hey, this team desperately needed help on the edge. Jalen Phillips could provide that. You have the reinforcements coming in of Brandon Graham. Maybe this takes a little bit of pressure off of Brandon Graham to, be significantly better than he's supposed to be. You have Nolan Smith coming back, and you say, it's a fully restocked deck of toys, a fully restocked box of toys for Vic Fangio. And I have this problem, okay? For a long time, I would deride Howie Roseman for his inaction, or I would deride Howie Roseman for not addressing specific position groups. Like way back in the day, when we were doing crossing broadcasts on 610 ESPN radio, I used to talk about organizational malpractice a lot. And I would say it's organizational malpractice that Howie Roseman seems to not understand that linebackers are an important position on a defense. I always thought it was organizational malpractice that it seemed like he was just allergic to drafting players from the SEC. And then once he decided, hey, go out and get a Heisman winner, go out and get a legit wideout in Devontae Smith. Maybe if I add this guy from the Crimson Tide, maybe it'll help. Well, it did. Maybe if I go out and get a bunch of Georgia Bulldogs who played together to play on defense together, maybe it'll get better. Surprise, it did. I think sometimes Howie runs himself into places where it's not quite the smartest guy in the room mentality, because that often has very detrimental results. So I don't think it's that. But there are times where I sit back and I think about Howie and I go, thank you. It's like that. He's allergic sometimes to admitting a mistake. And I think that when you look at the year-over-year roster adjustments that were made from the Super Bowl winning team to the team that the the Eagles actually started with this year, I think that it became pretty evident pretty quickly. They maybe moved on from too many guys on the defensive side of the ball. That like perhaps the Eagles moved on from too many veterans on the defensive side. Now, it doesn't mean that the defense has been bad because it hasn't. But I do kind of question some of the methodology here. And I do kind of question whether or not Howie thought that a bunch of these guys were ready to take a bigger step than they actually were. If you think I'm crazy, I mean, Zadarius Smith was pretty much done. They brought him in. He played well for a few games. He inexplicably retired. Again, I have my hunches of why he might have retired, but like you shouldn't have to go to what's essentially like the bargain barrel. You shouldn't have to go to the players who are desperate to go chase that one championship. You shouldn't have to do that. And if you do, that should be something that happens in the offseason. You shouldn't have to scramble in the course of a season for those kind of veterans on the team. So on one hand, part of me is like, Howie, what are we doing? This doesn't seem like a great thing. On the other hand, I go, all right, in a way, he is kind of admitting that there was a mistake. Like Adoree Jackson feels like a mistake. So now you have Jair Alexander. There was the thought that when they traded for Michael Carter, it was going to be like, oh, does that mean that they're going to make Cooper DeJean an inside or an outside corner and put Carter in the slot? Well, now it appears with the addition of Alexander that Cooper's going to stay where he's at. Carter maybe is more of a depth guy. Jalen Phillips is going to be interesting. Like, how does he factor into things? I don't know. I really don't. I would really like to see a scenario where Howie addresses the media and just kind of says, like, look, we had injuries, which is true. We've found a lot of value here. We think that this guy, especially Phillips, like you're trading a 3rd-round pick for Jalen Phillips today. Not trying to poo-poo the trade. I think it ultimately is a good trade. I like the idea that you're all in. I like the fact that you're not afraid to trade a 3rd-round draft pick. Yet you also happen to have a lot of picks still in the upcoming draft. You also have the ability here with Jalen Phillips that if he leaves in free agency at the end of the year, you could be, getting a compensatory pick back for him as well. So that's lovely. But like, if you look at it holistically and you look at what the Eagles actually are going to get and what they have going into the draft, after they traded that 3rd-round pick away for Jalen Phillips, the Eagles, as of right now, should have 8 draft picks in the 2026 draft. They'll have a 1st-round pick, a 2nd-round pick. They still have 2 3rd-round picks, 2 4th-round picks, and 2 5th-round picks. That includes possibly getting compensatory picks for Milton Williams, which could be a 3rd-rounder, Josh Sweat, that could be a 4th-rounder, and Mekhi Becton, that could be a 5th-rounder. So if you put all of those pieces together, you go, if there were ever a time to move off of a 3rd-round pick, now's the time. And it sounds like the Eagles moved their own pick, not the Jets pick, which you presume is going to be a higher pick in the 3rd round. All things considered, I'd say it's a good bit of business for Howie. But I'm not doing cartwheels in the street, and I'm not like doing the Helga Pataki, Hey Arnold, bubblegum shrine in the back of the walk-in closet. I'm not doing that. Because again, you shouldn't have to make moves like this in the season. And especially knowing that you have Nolan Smith coming back. You drafted Jahad Campbell, who could theoretically be an edge guy, could be a linebacker. It makes me kind of question a few things. Are they just not sold that some of their young guys are able to get the job done in the highest leverage moment? Worried that they don't have the depth if they lose another one of these guys? Like, it could be a lot of different things. I'm not poo-pooing any of these moves, but I'm not like setting off fireworks and like dunking on people on Twitter saying it's Howie season. I don't want to be like negative here. I really don't. I don't intend to be negative. But because I thought there was a chance that I would come off as negative, I brought in Mr. Positivity himself. Video guy Amadeus here. Amadeo, hello.
Hi, am I Mr. Positivity?
I'm going to call you Mr. Positivity today.
I don't know if that could be the fact tonight. I don't think that could be the fact.
Okay. How are you feeling about the Howie trades? Jair Alexander. You go out and get Jalen Phillips today, who has played for Vic Fangio before, had a lot of success with Vic Fangio in a limited run. Your thoughts? 610.
I mean, the Alexander one, the Ravens really haven't used him in really consistent, sets past few seasons. He really hasn't been the same player. So you're basically just banking on maybe Vic Fangio can fix him. The Phillips one, former Vic Fangio guy, maybe it's the same thing, but still way better than Alexander. So, and granted, you didn't give up that much to get these guys. So it's basically just, we'll see what happens with these guys.
It was a 6th-round pick for Jair Alexander and a 7th-round pick. So it's a late swap for late swap. And you're getting a guy in here who, like, I guess it's like this. You acquire the guy on the bye week. He'll have an entire week leading up to the next game. Whether or not he factors into the game plan or not remains to be seen. It's another body. It's another experienced vet. It's a guy who's played for good Packers teams in the past who, this Ravens team isn't exactly great right now, but like great organization, I would say. And I'd still say that regardless of how you feel about Harbaugh, it's still a very well-coached team. And you put all those things together and you say, that's actually like still a veteran dude to add to the locker room. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Phillips is interesting to me because like, if you go back to the Vic Fangio defenses, right, there haven't been a lot of guys to come out of Miami that have gone elsewhere that had played under Fangio that had ever seemed like Fangio was really like entranced might not be the word. Infatuated might be a little bit too far. But it didn't seem like Vic had kind of endeared himself to a lot of those defensive players in Miami. Like, remember, they were essentially doing cartwheels. They were kind of putting out their own tweets and social media posts that like, almost like ding dong, the witch is dead when Fangio left. And then he kind of turns around. He's like, oh, really? Goes out and wins a Super Bowl. So it's interesting that he presumably cherry picked Phillips, right? Like Howie's not going rogue and saying, hey, Vic, by the way, I went and got one of your boys from Miami. Do you like him? I don't know. Like, I have to think Fangio was like really involved in it, right? Has to be.
Yeah, especially with the way Miami just completely did not like Fangio. Got to go get somebody that probably liked him. Can't go get somebody that hated him. So yeah, I think it makes sense.
Correct. So, okay, look, here's the thing. So I'm actually going to say that this might be the Connor bus of it all. Saying running on fumes, was so tired after I went to the Flyers game last night. I like I said, I haven't had coffee. I was going to try to make food in between a meeting and the show, and then I have another meeting coming up. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to find the time to have food. I put together a protein shake very, very quickly. I have like a normal high natural energy anyway. But my problem is that like, and we'll get to the Flyers in a second. There have been so many nights I have not been home in the last like week. I had New York for work for two nights last week. Then I drove from Manhattan to Drexel Hill to Chickies and Pete's for Snow the Goalie Radio last Wednesday night. And I was exhausted during that show. And I got home and I like pretty much crashed on the bed and that was it. Thursday night was back down at Xfinity Mobile Arena doing the Flyers game. Friday went trick-or-treating with the kids. Saturday and Sunday back down at Xfinity Mobile Arena doing Flyers games. And I don't have the benefit of being like 20 minutes away. Like that is a solid, if I'm lucky, hour and a half drive to the game and about like an hour 10 on the way home. More often than not, it's like almost 2 hours to each game. Not saying that I'm not out here trying to complain about a very blessed life I have getting to do this stuff, but I'm like wiped. The fact that the Flyers don't play at home again until Saturday is an absolute blessing. I am counting my lucky stars that like I get to spend a few nights at home this week. It's going to be great. But man,
whoever designed the schedule this year needs to be fired.
No, I disagree. I'm going to tell you why. Last year was like the worst possible version of a Flyers schedule you could have had because of that March. I think it was March is when they had like 7 games in 11 days or whatever. That schedule was absolute dog doo-doo. And it made me so upset on so many levels last year. All I wanted last year was for the season to just come to a merciless end. And it was like, you're just watching this team that you knew was going nowhere. And all I wanted was for the season to end and was like, oh no, LOL, you have like 15 games left in a very condensed period. This version of things, it's like, yeah, it's like getting hit over the head with a steel chair. But like, you do know that at some point the cloud is going to kind of lift. I mean, they are almost a quarter of the way through their home games and it's November 3rd. I think the next game they play at home is going to be pretty much the quarter mark, right? That'll be their 10th home game on Saturday.
But then you're going to get hit with a major nail in the head. They have a 6-game homestand to start December.
In December, yeah, I know.
Yeah, and then you got the.
I thought you were bringing positivity today. What happened to you?
I'm sorry. When I watch the Flyers do what they did over the weekend, I can't. And the stuff that I hear on the side, I can't be positive. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we're gonna get to the Flyers here in a second. I do want to give some shout outs to people in the comments though. You got Ford says, here's one for you guys. My dog was up early today, ready to rock and roll. So daylight savings time affects them too. That's a good dog. Get Ford out of the house. Get Ford moving. At his age, it's really important that he does some cardio. Ford looks good. Ford's in good shape. He's good health. Let's see. Connor says that it was his daughter's first game last night. She was on the Lion King camera. Oh, that's very cool. One of our friends that works there must have put a word in. That's very cool. I love the Lion King camera where people hold up their kids. I think it's the best thing. That to me, I actually want to do that with intern Andrew. I want Bundy to pick up intern Andrew and hold him up like Simba. Nothing would make me happier. It's not going to happen, but it would be pretty funny if it did. Let's see. Ooh, this is interesting. JH says, Russ, did you see my comment in the Press Row Show stream? The team knows attendance is down. They offered triple reward points to get season ticket holders in the door. I have no idea. What are triple reward points?
So the Flyers season ticket holders.
Yeah, you guys have season tickets. All right, tell me the story of your people.
So they have every time you scan your tickets, they have a rewards program. So you can earn points to like either.
You get points if you show up to the game instead of sell the tickets or just don't show up.
Yes, every time you scan your tickets, you get points. They change it every year, so this is a new thing. So you can use those points to either upgrade your tickets, move down to the lower level, maybe get into the club area or something like that, or you can use the points to get tickets to other events like concerts. If WWE is here, you do that for that. You can get Flyers gear. So that's basically what the entire reward system is for. So
they're offering triple points to season ticket holders for them to like show up to the games.
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing. So I'll tell you this. I know that there are people with the Flyers who are unhappy with the fact that I have a few times said that the attendance is down. Now, in the past, I have noted that the attendance is down at games because I thought that the front offices were making very bad decisions and that like there was no reason for anybody to come out, like the Hextall era and the Fletcher era. I didn't think people should be out. I said last night, and then I was accused by somebody in the comments that I'm getting paid to sell season tickets, which would be great. If they want to give me a nice 4 to 5 figure kickback on season ticket sales, I will gladly take it.
That is far from the truth.
It would be great if they were paying me. But my whole point has been this Flyers team before this weekend, because this weekend sucked, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Before this weekend, this Flyers team was running counter to virtually everything else that we've seen out of this team for the last few years. They were playing hard. They were getting into the greasy areas. They were manufacturing goals. They weren't getting cute. They weren't wasting time waiting for the perfect passing lane to open up. They were just getting the job done. And then you were kind of following that up with like positive media availability. Rick Tocchet, in press conferences, it seems very clear, very transparent, which we'll also get to a little bit later on for something he had to say last night. And like, to me, I go, that's a team that's worth spending money on. Like, that's a team that's worth going out and seeing. And I have also highlighted the fact that I think the tickets in the NHL in general, and especially, also with the Flyers, are too expensive on their site. Now, there's a secondary market. Last night, tickets to go see the Flyers take on the Flames, $19 on TickPick. No fees, $19. Now, if you're somebody who's like, I need to be 3 rows off the ice, that's not $19. Well, then that's a you problem. That's not a secondary ticket market problem. But I think this team, prior to the weekend, was playing in a way that like they deserve to be playing in front of a more full arena. Now, Saturday night's attendance was very strong. It wasn't a sellout. And if it was a sellout, then the drop count wasn't the same. So your sellout can include comp tickets. It can include it's just the number of tickets that have been assigned to a human being versus a drop count, which is actually like the turnstile count. So if they say, tonight is a sellout at the Phillies game and 43,000 whatever people, but you look around and you go, well, there are entire sections that are empty. Like there can't be 43,000. The turnstile count, that drop count might actually be closer to like 26,000. So there's always a disparity. I would say that I can't give you an exact number, but the Toronto game felt not sellout-esque, but it was a very good crowd, a very strong crowd. Saturday night, you would expect that. And Toronto has star power. And even though it's not an American team, and even though it's not a rivalry game necessarily, like a Rangers or a Bruins or whatever, it was a good attended game. Sunday, I talked to somebody in the organization before the game, and I had brought up that, hey, Saturday's attendance was good. And this person was like, I don't think tonight's going to be as good. And I was like, well, I think you're probably right because Calgary sucks. Western Conference Canadian team. Not a lot of reason to be out there. It's not a matinee game, right? It's not an afternoon game where you take the kids out. It's a Sunday night game. I actually thought the game was pretty well attended. I saw somebody say in the comments that they thought last night's attendance didn't look very good. Late in the game, people bailed. But midway through the first period, second period, that place was a lot more full than I expected, which on one hand I go, oh, that's a good sign. That means that people are coming out. The downside, Amadeo, was it almost felt like if you say to somebody, hey, you've never watched this show before, but watch it with me live. Or you've never watched this team before, watch it with me live. And then that show or that team underperforms in such a horrible way that instead of like bringing your friend to the party that is Flyers hockey, now they might be like, the fuck did you just do to me? Like on back-to-back, what is this? This is the team that you're excited about? It's like, that's not though, because it's Darth Vladar. He gave up more than 2 goals. And then Alexei Kola said, like, what am I going to do? You know, this is a weird weekend.
Yeah, we didn't go to Saturday's game because we somehow managed to sell our tickets on the secondary market. That was shocking. We went yesterday. Our row is like I think there's like either a partial ticket family next to us or a full ticket. Like sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not, and the row's empty. So it's like there's so many patches in the upper sections. It's either very packed or it's very empty, and it's never in between. So I don't know.
Well, Joe Papel actually brings up a pretty interesting point here that I guess I hadn't thought of before, but I, happen to have the smartest viewers in all of YouTube, Philadelphia sports fandom. So Joe here, who is a season ticket holder, says Flyers attendance is down for many reasons. Having 5 home games in 9 days is too many. Even a family of 4 buying on third-party reduced prices only attend 1 of those, and it's too many for season ticket holders. So I think there actually might be some truth to that. That actually isn't a bad point at all, because if you're like, okay, if you live in my area, right? If you live up above King of Prussia on that 422 corridor, it is a bitch to drive to the arena every game. It is. Again, very blessed, very grateful. But it's a bitch to do. And 5 home games in 9 days, like you're not going to do that. You're probably not going to do it. Maybe you go to 3 of them. And as that kind of starts to happen, you're probably going to see that drop. The one thing that I think is a little bit different now versus like when Hextall was here, and I think even in the early Fletcher days, is like they had a lot of issues with ticket brokers that were buying up entire rows or almost entire sections worth of tickets. And then you'd go to a game and you'd see like an entire corner section in the upper level. No one was there except for like the 2 or 3 people who had a season ticket. I don't think that's happening now. I just think this is like, there are a whole bunch of different factors going into it. But man,
it also doesn't help that you raise ticket prices for the first time in so many years. I think that's also a cause.
Which I think is fair if you're looking to buy directly from the team.
Look, if they want to poo-poo me, they can do that. I'm not trying to bring flack on anything here. To blame Amadeo for shitting on the entire thing.
Oh, no. The people who tend to have issues with the things I say on Snow the Goalie or my show, they tend to reach out directly to me, and then we have a conversation. And I say,
ooh,
did you actually listen to the thing? Or did somebody show you 5 seconds of a thing and you're reacting to the 5 seconds? It's usually pretty helpful to know if we have full context or not. So again, I think this team, even with this past weekend kind of thrown off.
Bless you.
Thank you. Even with this past weekend not factored in, I still think the team is worth going out to see. And I saw I think tickets to next Wednesday's game against the Oilers are something like, I think they were like $25 on a couple of the secondary market sites. It might have gone up since then, but last night they were like $25 to go see Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. I said to my wife, I'm like, that might actually be the one to go to. That might be one to take the kids to. The Flyers might not win, but you're going to go see the best player in the world. Of course, you should, that is a game to go to. So again, I think they should have more people in the arena. It was funny because was it Saturday that the Sixers played an NBA Cup game against Boston? No, it wasn't. It was Friday. And, the Sixers were off to an undefeated start. And Joel Embiid was on that load management, minutes restriction, all that, and no Paul George and all that. And I was wondering, what's the attendance going to look like? And then you're watching it and you're listening to it. Now, they light the Sixers games differently on, especially for on TV. So you really can't see what the upper levels look like. But I texted somebody, I'm like, yo, it sounds very loud at the Sixers game. And I'm pretty sure that Sixers tickets just in general are cheaper. I think if you buy directly from the team. I don't know what the secondary market has looked like for the Sixers. But it's always interesting to me. Hockey typically is more expensive. Secondary market, if you're looking for tickets and you can find it for $20 and your fees are included, to me, that's a pretty easy case to make to go down and see a hockey game. If at $20 a pop, you're saying to yourself, I don't know if I want to do that, or I don't want to be in the upper level. That to me is more of a you problem than a ticket problem. But that's just me. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Let me see. Mo23 said that you are not Mr. Positive.
No, sometimes when me and my dad go to the games, no, I'm not Mr. Positive.
I like that Tony Louie thinks that I'm the only one who doesn't get paid to shill over on Press Row Show. None of us are listen, Sam Filippo of all people, he would be painfully shilling if you were getting a kickback.
Oof.
And there is no kickback. Would be great though. Let's see. Where was the Yeah, here you go. This is a good point too. Tony says it's also a sign of the times that we live in. Watching the game on a 75-inch LG makes my motivation to go see a game live dissipate a bit. I think that's fair. You talk about the comfort, you talk about the picture quality, you talk about the fact that like there are no lines for the bathroom. You can go to your fridge and grab one of your reasonably priced beverages instead of, doing it at the arena. I think it's a big part of it. I will say that like there is something about I love going to watch all sports in person except for football. I don't like watching the NFL in person unless it's lower level. I can enjoy a Sixers game up top or down low. I can enjoy a hockey game for totally different reasons, being closer to the ice where you can see the speed and the size of the players versus being up top where you can kind of see things playing out tactically, right? That's a totally different way to watch it, and I'd highly recommend it. Baseball, I think, just because it's typically the summer and because that Citizens Bank Park is set up the way that it is, there's a social element to it. You can be walking around outside having a grand old time. You can watch the game from whatever food stand you're at, or there's a different thing there. And I'll include the Union too. I mean, the Subaru Park isn't exactly huge. There's not a bad seat in the house. You're outside. It's a really great stadium. I don't know. There are benefits to being in person, I guess is my point. But I understand people being like, oh, yeah, I got my big TV. I get it.
Thankfully, I know people don't have the fortune of me and my family. We live 5 minutes from the arena, so we just walk there. So that adds to our benefit, but not everybody has that beneficial aspect.
Chris Freed pulled this, says attendance for the Flyers is at 86.2% of capacity this season. Only Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Utah are worse. You know what'll change it is winning. Like that is the thing that can actually get people like through the door. They have to win games, which we're going to get to in a second. I saw this one from Brighton. Brighton, like the video, share the video, subscribe. Thank you for being here. Says, has there been any behind the scenes chatter about the new arena, timeline, location, etc.? I haven't heard anything other than what's been made publicly available. They're still working on it. To me, like, I don't have anything to support it yet. But from a few of the things that I've kind of heard, it really feels like the Sixers are running point on the new arena in a pretty meaningful way. And that was part of the decision for them to go in on the joint arena instead of pursuing Market East. And if that's the case, I have no idea what to make of any of it. And I think that like in a scenario, this is actually where it would get interesting. If the Sixers really are running point on the new arena development, right? Edelman is the one who has all the experience with it. I wonder if that makes the Flyers or makes Spectacor more likely to hang on to Xfinity Mobile Arena once the new one's built. Like there could be the thought that you have open competition and it's like right in the same lot and like you're both trying to fight for concerts. And if you're a 50-50 partner on the new arena, can you really be all in on that and still have Xfinity Mobile? Or is the idea that like there's going to be a concert going on at the same time as a game in the other building? Like maybe. But I'm interested. Like I think that one of the most interesting stories that will come out is what ultimately went into the decision for them to go on that new arena together. And like once it's set up and once we have an idea of what happens to Xfinity Mobile Arena, that is going to be like the real interesting story. Part of me thinks that they're going to keep that building up for a bit. They put a lot of money into that building to then turn around and tear it down not too long after. It's just where I'm at. So let me see. There was I saw something else over in the comments. Here you go. Joe Papel talking about the team this year says there isn't much buzz. York instead of Caulfield, Cutter lighting it up in Anaheim, Jet instead of Demidov because of faux playoff run. Think about this team just adding those three guys. Okay. I'll play this game. I'll play the hypothetical game. York over Caulfield. I have a tweet from draft night of my own saying it was a mistake to pass on Cole Caulfield. Was it a mistake? Probably.
Yes.
Is Cam York a good player right now? Yeah. Was I pretty on board with the idea of trading Cam York in the offseason? I was. Would I trade Cam York for a good player, for a good center, as part of a package for a center? I sure would. Do I think it was a bad call? I do. Cutter Gauthier. I couldn't tell you what happened. I have no idea. Very clearly something changed between him being drafted and the regime change coming in and him deciding he didn't want to play here. I don't know if they could have done anything differently. Keep Chuck Fletcher. Would I have rather have Chuck Fletcher and Cutter Gauthier? No, I would not. Does it change anything else? Not really. Jamie Drysdale's having a really good season. He's still in that sort of young enough phase of a defenseman where you could say he still hasn't reached his peak. 4 years from now, will we look back on it and say that was a disastrous event? Possibly. Maybe even probably. We could.
Yes.
But Gauthier right now looks really good in Anaheim. He's playing very well, and he's exactly what this team could have used. They don't have him. I don't know what to tell you. The Demidov thing is actually where I do get upset. It is. Because the Demidov thing was within their control. I don't know what went into Gauthier's decision to not want to play here. I have some thoughts, but I don't know for sure. The decision to trade or the decision to draft York over Caulfield, prior regime, bad idea. The Demidov thing is upsetting because that was a John Tortorella-led team that was not good enough, that competed in the beginning of the year by running Sean Couturier into the ground, and they went on a bullshit fake playoff run at the end of the year where every point mattered. And that's where Torts tried to galvanize the team, and it blew up in his face. And so you ended up drafting at a spot where you were going to have to take a guy like Jetlachenko. You could also instead make the case that Zeev Buyin would have been the better pick. And I think many of us would say, as of right now, the early returns certainly look like Buyin would have been a better pick. My upset factor was multiplied because I looked at what the Flyers got in Mishkov, and then I said, Demidov likes Mishkov. They've played together before. This faux playoff thing doesn't matter. If you could, not pick up a few points at the end of the season, you could have been in position to potentially draft Demidov, and you didn't get him because of your fake playoff run. And that, to me, that draft is the one that, like, if you're ever going to look back at the rebuild and whether or not the rebuild worked out or not, I think that's going to be the draft that we all circle, right? Because that is the season that everyone and their mother should have been like, totally get it. We can't tell Torts to go out and lose games, but we can certainly remove some of the toys from his chest. We could certainly take some of the players out of the equation. We could certainly not win a few games. Sometimes a coach doesn't need to be given all the tools in the toolbox. Sometimes you trade a guy who's a glue guy. If for no other reason, then it lowers your ceiling, it lowers your floor. And for some reason, this team didn't do it, and they were obsessed with the idea of making the playoffs. And so they've got Jetlachenko. Maybe Jetlachenko turns out it becomes an incredible player. I don't think so. But maybe he does. Who knows? Who's to say? But I think you'll drive yourself nuts if you keep looking back on those moves. I could flip this and say, the draft they just had, Porter Martone looks like a stud. And I'm kind of high on the idea of Jack Nesbitt being like an actual top 2 center. And if he ends up becoming a 2C, which is a while away, I'd be okay. Like, maybe this past draft will be a good one. I don't know. You'll drive yourself absolutely nuts if you.
I'll just counter this comment right here. The Flyers drafted Forrester after the Caulfield draft. Forrester wasn't drafted before Caulfield, so that point's null and void.
They certainly did not draft Jetlachenko because they were thinking of Emil Andre. That is not true either. So that would mean both of those points are not exactly correct.
You know what
I think they're probably
remind me of?
What?
Realistically, they remind me of old Howie Roseman drafts where he has to be the smartest guy in the room. And
you think this past draft was, or the one before?
Not this specific past draft.
Not the Martone,
Luchenko,
the Martone, and
that stuff. That feels like Howie Roseman. You got to be the smartest guy in the room. You got to be the fancy pick. You can't pick best player available. And then, lo and behold, Howie Roseman started picking best player available. They started producing better talent from the draft.
Mhm.
I don't know why this Flyers team sometimes just completely doesn't want to draft best player available. You don't draft for need that high in the draft. For some reason they do. I don't know. But
Yeah.
this is really about because I
So
see so many young players throughout the NHL that are blossoming into
Mhm.
stars.
Yes.
And whenever we have a young player here, oh, you got to wait until like he's 25 for him to fully come out. You got to wait, Yeah, we had Mitchkov do it last year. Now he's struggling like ever so often.
Mhm.
It's annoying. I'm just
So
tired of it.
I want to go back to this really quickly because Nick then elaborated and said the idea of we have someone similar in the system already. It was a direct quote from Danny. I found the direct quote. The quote about why they chose Jet Lachenko instead of Bouillon was this quote. Well, when you look at our defense, you have it right. I think Steve Bouillon is going to be a great player, and he's someone we considered strongly. But with Cam York, Jamie Drysdale, Emil Andre, at some point it gets tough to go with the smaller guy, but he's a fantastic player. That to me is not the same thing as saying we have Emil Andre. We have Steve Bouillon at home, and it's Emil Andre. He is one of 3 players mentioned because they were all smaller stature defensemen who seemed to fit a certain profile. But I think that it was more on we already have Cam York, we already have Jamie Drysdale, and yeah, in theory we have another small guy in Emil Andre. But that if Emil Andre hadn't been part of the organization, I still don't think it changes the calculus for them that much. But that's just me, and maybe I'm wrong. The Lachenko pick to me was a draft for need and not for best player. And when you're in a rebuild, you have to draft for best player. I don't care if you think the player is redundant 10 times over. You get the best player. That's
But
what the
Russ,
point
we
of the
can't
rebuild
judge
is.
him because he's 19 years old.
I fucking swear. Every time I get told, "Oh, he's 19." Oh, well, you can't actually evaluate a draft until 5 years out, or 7 years out, or 10 years out, or 20 years out, or a lifetime out. Like, no, you can have immediate returns on a trade and say, as of right now, it certainly looks like the other team got the better end of whatever deal.
And
Like,
I'm
you
sorry,
could do that
when
now.
multiple scouts say that his projected ceiling is a third line center, I'm sorry that I can't be positive about the pick and say, oh, sorry, he's 19. Sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
See,
Yep.
this is why you need more chaos on Snow the Goalie Press Row show, because I feel like
I am chaos.
well, sometimes I feel like you get cornered with you can't bring that full thing out because you have the defendant of Anthony and Bundy saying that he's
The
he's
really
19.
interesting thing is, do those guys feel the same way in front of the camera as they do away from the camera?
610-632.
And maybe they do. Who knows? Who's to say? Last thing I wanted to get to, because I have to bolt for a meeting. When we take a look at how the Flyers have played so far this year, I find it very, very worrisome that we are at this point in the season and Rick Tocchet feels the need to say that his team needs more will. That to me is at least slightly concerning. So he put out a quote, and this is from last night. It was transcribed by Adam Kimmelman. He said, "You got to keep pounding it. We got to find people who want to continue to do it. We'll find them. But it's my job to get these guys to do it." He had a good record going into 2 games ago, and we just kind of the will wasn't there the last 2 games. We didn't have the will. A microcosm at the end. We had a guy in the slot, Sean Couturier, 2 guys to the side of the net. Goalie makes a save, but nobody's in front of the net. Haven't had practice in 3 days. We're going to do a lot of net front drills almost constantly. We're going to have to get it like kind of ingrained in these guys. It's hard to win in this league. You want to play in April and May. You got to play hard hockey. I think we're finding easy ice. A lot of guys, even some of our best players, they want to play easy ice and not the hard ice. And that is fair because, as I said earlier, this team earlier in the season was playing like the antithesis of the teams that we've watched in the past that are looking for the perfect lane, that aren't willing to get down and dirty. I kind of question, like, Nikita Grubenkin is a guy that talked about wanting to play more, right?
Yeah,
like that's a guy that he specifically kind of like shouted out in the past, right? And yet, like, if you go back to last night's game, let me just pull the shifts here really quick. All right, here we go. Full report. Let's go by player because I feel like we didn't see that last night. Let's see. Time on ice. Nikita Grabenkin played 11 minutes the entire game. 11 minutes and 27 seconds. That was at 5-5. Let me see. If I go total time on ice, Grabenkin had the fourth fewest minutes. He was at 12 minutes and 6 seconds on the night. If you're looking for a guy who's going to get into the gritty areas, into the greasy areas, who's going to win battles on the boards, who's going to be a pain in the ass in front of the net, it's Nikita Grabenkin. Then he needs to play more. I'd also contend that Matvei Mishkov spent 2 periods skating around with guys who are bottom 6 dudes. And it might have made a little bit of sense, just a tiny little bit of sense. Maybe put Matvei Mishkov with some guys who are I don't know, skilled in some capacity, and put a good line together some point over the first 2 periods. And maybe you're not chasing the game, and maybe you're not looking at the fucking standings today going, how did we end up with 0 points against a dog shit Calgary team? You should be looking at it saying, hey, it was a really disappointing start, but we forced overtime. We got the win, got the 2 points. We don't care that Calgary out west got a point. Cool. We got the job done. It wasn't ugly, but they don't ask how, they ask how many. But instead, today, the Flyers look at the standings and they go, wow, we just blew a really good opportunity to get 2 points against a bad team. And when you get to the end of the season, and if you are in those final few games against Winnipeg and Montreal, if you're really fighting for that final playoff spot and every point matters, you're probably going to look back on this game in the early November when you blew it. And flat out, this team blew it on the second night of a back-to-back against a really bad team. If you lose to Calgary on Saturday, it's annoying. If you follow that up with a back-to-back loss against Toronto, it's at least somewhat understandable. Doing it the other way makes no sense. And I have to go to a call. So I will be back on Wednesday. We have Snow the Goalie Radio Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, Glassboro, New Jersey, Chickies and Pete's. And I will be back here with the Russ Joy Show on Wednesday. Thank you to Video Guy Amadeo. Thank you to everybody who tuned in live. Don't forget, you can also find the show where you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music. For Amadeo, I'm Russ. This has been the Russ Joy Show, but you knew that already because you're smart and it's also the name of the show. Have a marvelous Monday. Talk to each and every one of you very, very soon.